Good morning, friends. Oh, what a crowd this is and what a day it is. First of all, Reverend Al, thank you for being on the front line of all the causes that matter in this country for half a century. For 33 years, NAN has been the powerhouse that our nation has looked to as a conscience of America. When things are not going the way they should, we have Reverend Al Sharpton to show up in person, to comfort families, to be there, to call out injustice, especially when there's been some of the most horrific murders and assassinations in our country, and I want to talk about one. Reverend Al came up to my hometown of Buffalo, New York. It was May 14, 2022. My family, our friends, my community were devastated that someone had the audacity, a young man whose mind was polluted on social media, gets his hands on a weapon, goes down to Pennsylvania to get a bump stock, which means he could have even more magazine capacity so he could do more death. And he decided after doing his research, he wanted to go to the community that was the most black close to him, is what his words were. Now, he could have gone to New York City. It would have been 3 hours and a half. Buffalo was 3 hours and 15 minutes. So he decided to go from the southern part of New York up to Buffalo to wreak his damage and hatred and the white supremacy that he was so enraptured with. And he even had the audacity to show on social media what he was doing when he was doing it. You know who showed up in the aftermath to help heal a community that was grieving? Reverend Al Sharpton showed up. That's what he does. He's there for us in countless, countless ways. And he has the wounds to show for it, literally the scars on his chest when someone attacked him for being the voice of America. I want to thank him. I want to thank Reverend Franklin Richardson. We've developed a deep friendship. You are a powerful man of God, and I want to thank you for the generosity of spirit that you do every single day to help lift up our people. I know we'll be joined by our great Mayor, Eric Adams, who's been a strong friend, proud of his accomplishments, working together to keep our streets safe. And also a special shout out to one of the highest positions in state government, after mine, I guess. And that'd be our Chief of Staff, Stacy Lynch, who cut her teeth with the movement, the daughter of the movement here. I was reflecting that it was 56 years ago yesterday that our nation buried Dr. King. Now, most of you look way too young to remember that, right? Now, you weren't even born, most of you, I can see this. But I was a little 10-year-old, and I was growing up in a social justice Catholic family. What does that mean? It means that you do things that nobody else in your neighborhood does. My parents, we grew up in a conservative community. They lived in a trailer park. But we were protesting the Vietnam War. We were joining the civil rights marches. My parents came to Washington. We didn't have much, but we knew there were others who needed our help and our voices. So I knew the day he was assassinated. We held hands and cried at our dinner table, all of us, a large Catholic family. And I've never lost that feeling of sometimes you have to stand up and have the courage to do what's right in the face of adversity because God will reward you. And today I'm proud to be in a position where I can use the power of the office of governor to do good for people. That's all I want to use this power for. Now, we've seen power. Power can also be used in a cruel and brutal way. Going back, yes, to the whip of the overseers in the fields who are dominating other human beings. The Jim Crow laws and all the ways people were kept down, the redlining, the inability to get a good education. There are countless ways that power was used to oppress people. And power can be so intoxicating. Just think about a man who was in power in our country just a few years ago, who didn't want to leave office when it was his time, and used his power to instruct an insurrection to take over our democracy. That's what power can be used for in the wrong hands. But my friends, power in the good hands, the just hands, the hands of the people in this room, can be a force for good that can take us to new levels. And that's why I'm using the power I have, humbly, as a servant of God and a servant of the people of New York, to work on a budget right now. Most of you don't care about our budget. That's okay. But all I know is that's the place And I can make sure that we have a plan to start building more housing because it's just too expensive in the great city of New York and across our state. We've lost 200,000 black and brown families. Why? They can't afford a home. So we're going to make sure we start building and building so kids who were raised here can raise their own families here. Home ownership to build generational wealth that's been too long denied black and brown families. We're going to start that with this budget. And in this budget, we're going to point the spotlight on the fact that more black babies die at 2.5 times the rate of white babies. Black moms are dying at a higher rate, 3 to 4 times the rate of white moms, because they are not getting the attention they need. I'm going to, for the first time in America, say that in the state of New York, we're going to lead the way and say that pregnant moms who don't have the time to take off work because they have a low-wage job or no one to watch the kids, they're not getting prenatal care, and their babies, and they are suffering. We're going to mandate paid time off for expectant moms so we can start reversing the trend and start taking care of our babies. We're also making sure we deal with people who are struggling with mental illness. My God, we put $1 billion for it, and I'm going to need some more. In our streets, in our subways, in our prisons, people are suffering, and we're going to help them because that's what the power of this office can allow us to do together. And there's one more issue. I have so many more to talk about, but my also thought was to thank Reverend Al for standing with me just last fall when we talked about, for the first time, the state has even entertained the idea in a powerful way of having reparations, acknowledging the fact that there was a time in our city when 1 out of 5 New Yorkers were enslaved. Everybody thinks it all happened down south, right? 1 out of 5 New Yorkers were slaves. They're the ones who, with their sweat and toil, build up this city. And we're going to study the possibility of how we can help right the wrongs of the past, because you cannot move forward until you acknowledge the ugliness and the racism and the cruelty of the past. And that's what we're doing here in the state of New York. As you convene for the next couple of days, this powerful group of people, politicians, I think all of our elected officials and the elected wannabes that were referenced here today, and the academics and the clergy and the people that are just social activists. But I am at my core, I'm an activist. I thank you for gathering here to study the problems of today. But at the end of this conference, there's one thing I hope we can take away, and that is the realization that we do have the power to take away people's pain and to give them a chance at life. That's why we're here on earth. That's why God put all of us here. I believe that to my core. And we will give people hope again. The young people are feeling so disaffected that they don't think the future is going to be good for them anymore. That is so sad, because youthfulness was always about optimism. Let's restore that again. Let's give them a country and a democracy and a world that they deserve. And together, coming out of NAN stronger and more powerful, you have a governor who will work hand in hand with you as we challenge anyone who gets in our way. We'll take on any fight, anyone who stops us in our march toward justice and doing good for the people of this great state and this nation. Thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the conference.
Governor Kathy Hochul. We're going to have remarks, and then we'll cut the ribbon. The governor is going to wait and help us cut the ribbon. I want all of our National Action Network board members and our elected officials to stand on either side as we cut the ribbon. I'm not going to call everybody's name. I'll only call your name if you are on time when I cut this ribbon. But before we do that, 33 years ago when we started National Action Network, Governor, Attorney Michael Hardy, stand up, our Executive Vice President, and about 3 or 4 of us had come to Harlem, had left Slave Theater in Brooklyn to start National Action Network. Attorney Hardy said to me, we're going to need 5 people to sign to incorporate the organization. One of them was a black cop from Brooklyn, New York. 33 years ago, was one of the founding members. 33 years later, his pastor, my mentor, and I baptized him at his recommendation at Rikers Island. He wanted to not only visit them for baptism, he said, I want to be rebaptized. He is the mayor of the city of New York, Mayor Eric Adams.
Reverend Sharpton is wearing that suit, man. You know, I was sitting here on the side listening to the governor, and I don't think sometimes we really realize the moment when you heard a narrative. Sometimes when a elected is telling you what is their North Star, we tend to sort of miss over the important parts. But if you were to dig into the lives of many of us who are in office right now, our stories are similar. As she talked about her dad, her mom, being in Buffalo, the denial of access to the services that you should have as not only New Yorkers, but Americans, it has abandoned many of us. We have been betrayed by the promises that this country and oftentimes this city states we're supposed to have. And we are aligned right now with so many people who are in power that could move this issue forward. As she talked about maternal morbidity, I think about what Tony Reynoso is doing in Brooklyn, as he has allocated so much time and energy to do so. You know, when we talk about these things, I say over and over again, we cannot focus on a numerical minority of items we disagree on. Let's look at the 90% of the items we agree on. We agree there should be housing. We agree that black women shouldn't die at a disproportionate rate from giving birth. We agree that we should be safe in our streets without abusive policing. We agree on all of these things, but we focus on the areas that we disagree. And Nan is saying to us as we come inside the room, let's sit down and really lean into where we agree. You know, people often talk about Jumaane Williams and Eric Adams. We come from the same background, the same fight, the same struggle. And we're going to have our philosophical disagreements on things that people want to focus on, but we agree that his child should grow up in a safe city just as Jordan grew up in a safe city. We agree on the same thing. And I'm not new to this, I'm true to this. Don't view life right now. Go back 33 years. And the consistency of 33 years of doing this. And people want to rewrite the history. But if you look at a servant leader, you will realize there was a moment of why I asked my spiritual father, Reverend Herbert Daughtry, and this great civil rights leader, Dr. Reverend Sharpton, let's go to Rikers Island. I could have gone to any church in this city to be rebaptized. I could have had my feet washed at any place in the city. But we went to Rikers Island, and we sit down next to those 10 other black men. And we didn't bring in cameras. We didn't bring in reporters. We stood there next to them because I wanted them to know that I'm you. I'm you. I'm a perfectly imperfect person that was just able to find a way just to get through. Thank God we had number runners that mommy was able to hit the number every once in a while, so we were able to get by. I'm not trying to be this fancy person. And yes, you can be the word police and say he should have said it this way or that way. Don't try to give me all that madness. I know where my heart is. And my heart didn't come here today. My heart was here 33 years ago. Folks right now who are crawling around on the floor in diapers are telling me what I was doing 33 years ago. Listen, I'm not good on how to tweet. I'm good on the streets. I'm consistent. I don't talk about we need to do something about mental health. I'm on the subway where you see predominantly black and brown men are homeless on the subway system, talking to them, giving them socks, giving them undergarments, trying to get them in the care that they need. I've been on Rikers Island more than any mayor in the history of this city, talking to inmates who are predominantly black and brown and talking to correction officers who are predominantly black and brown. Over 40% of them are women, black women, trying to provide for their family, like the speaker's mother was. Consistency is what we need. And you're consistent when you can do it for 33 years. I challenge you to find 1 month in 33 years that I was not fighting on behalf of black and brown people. Find 1 month. You all tech savvy? Go Google me 33 years ago. You find 1 month that I took a vacation. So I'm not woke because I never went to sleep. Never went to sleep. And I'm so happy to be the mayor right now with you. This governor, we have communicated and struggled over some challenging moments. I was able to call her when COVID was suffocating this city. I was able to call her when 180,000 migrants and asylum seekers came here without the national government giving us what we need and not coming with real, true immigration reform. I was able to call her when we needed to deal with bullets carving highways of death throughout our city to come up with real smart anti-violence initiative. I was able to call her over and over and over again. The right person at the right time that's your partner in government can get things done. And let me conclude with this. My brother, Reverend Sharpton. You know, who are we without a conscience? Who are we without something talking to us? And science has never been able to truly reveal what a conscience actually is that makes you just think about your actions and say, what you did, was it right? And just as our physical body needs a conscience, the anatomy of our country needs a conscience. Reverend Sharpton is the conscience of America. What he has done in the international community, just a few weeks ago, we stood side by side as we asked in America, how could we allow Haiti to go through what it's going through? Why aren't we there for the Haitian people? You go back to the days of Yusuf Hawkins. I remember how we would be on the campaign trail protecting Reverend Sharpton, his 2 beautiful daughters and wife, and he would stop off at the mother of Yusuf Hawkins' household long before the cameras left, still provided them the support that they deserved. You look at the days we walked the streets and we were painting crack houses to identify those who were selling the poison in our community, and then he was fighting on behalf of those who were in jailhouses. You look over the record of Reverend Sharpton and you'll see the definition of what a conscience means. You take him out of America's history and you'll see that the conscience of America will be challenged. He forced America to stand up and deal with these real issues, these international issues. And you're not going to really appreciate it. Because you know how some of us are, we don't really appreciate us until we're standing on each other's coffin saying, oh, how much I love you. Love him now. Because Barack Obama would not have been as successful as a president if he didn't have the conscience of Reverend Sharpton. All of these leaders and all of you in this room who are elected into office right now, you had to pass through NAN to get there. And if you pass through NAN to get there, you need to respect the action of Reverend Sharpton, and you need to respect the action of who was one of the first board members, and his name was Eric Adams. I approve of this message.